Now, recently, President Trump had a campaign rally in Ohio, and of course, he seeks to win in Ohio. That's 18 electoral votes. And so now he's in Ohio, and he made some interesting. Let me start this again because it's not an interesting argument. So let me just. I'm sorry, I'm sidetracked here. All right, let's try this again. So while President Trump was campaigning in the state of Ohio, he said something that doesn't make any sense. Take a look.
And our air and our water right now is cleaner than it's been in 40 years. And sadly, I can't say historic because, a couple of 100 years ago, there was nobody here, right? So I assume that 200-300 years ago was cleaner, probably. You never know.
You never know, except that you could totally know. So, look, his points about cleaner air and cleaner water. Oh, it's the cleanest ever. No, it's not. Flint still doesn't have drinkable water. But aside from that point, man, there's nobody in Ohio 200 to 300 years ago. There's just nobody there. Nobody lived here. Nobody lived here. Okay, well, look, a couple hundred years ago, 200 years, let's say. Well, 200 years ago was 1820. Okay. Now, were there people living in Ohio in 1820? Well, let's go back to the census. Back in 1810, they did a census and they found that as opposed to nobody living in Ohio, there was actually about 230,760 people that were living in the state of Ohio. The state. Remember, Ohio became a state back in 1803, or approximately 216 years ago. By the way, even before it was a state, there were people in Ohio. In fact, archaeologists have estimated that Ohio has been inhabited for approximately 15,000 years. So there's been a lot of people in Ohio. So look, now, if you're a regular person, if you're a person in the crowd, you don't need to know that. Now, it is fascinating trivia, and it is very interesting to know. But look, I get it if you're working 2 jobs to feed your family, and you're barely getting by. I can understand that you might not care about this at all. But if you are campaigning in a state that you would like to win, Ohio has 18 electoral votes, right? It can be very important in elections. It's considered a swing state. Well, if you're campaigning in that state, then maybe you might want to know something about it. Look, at least that's conventional wisdom. And then again, we live in a time where conventional wisdom has been thrown out the freaking window. It doesn't even matter anymore. I don't think anybody in that crowd actually gives a crap about, the fact that Donald Trump's too stupid and too ignorant to know about Ohio's history. The fact that there were people living in Ohio 200 to 300 years ago. I mean, they don't care that he spent 0 time researching. Then in the course of his speech, he lied multiple times. Nobody cares. And that sucks. What Donald Trump does is he goes in front of a crowd and says a bunch of stupid things and then lies a bunch of times. And also in the course of that, tells people exactly what they want to hear. Democrats bad. Immigrants bad. Everything you don't like is fake news. Doesn't exist. It's not real. Now, look, the reason that this is important is, look, we're not going to get through to these people. Most of these people, if you're still with Donald Trump at this point, you're a lost cause. You're willfully ignorant. There's enough information out there to know that Donald Trump is a complete disaster as president. You've proven that you don't care about facts and reality. Oh, but Jeff, what are you talking about? The stock market's record highs today. Yeah, and most Americans don't have stocks. Working people, the working class, does not have stocks. We do not have 409ks, which don't really exist. Most Americans, look, a lot of Americans in the workforce don't actually have 401ks or any money to put towards their own retirement through the IRA accounts. They just don't. Look, I talked about it just recently. 2/3 of millennials don't have any retirement plan. They just don't. And most people don't even have savings. Half of all Americans work in low-wage jobs. And look, going back to millennials and retirement, it's not because we're lazy. It's because we just don't have money. Not only that, but we've got massive amounts of student loan debt. I think it was what, 50, 53%, 55% of millennials, right, who have a job where they, the job, the employer actually does offer a retirement plan, are unable to access that retirement plan because they're either temporary or part-time workers, or they haven't been at the company long enough to be able to have access to retirement benefits. It's not as if millennials are now 20-somethings. No, we're 30, 40 years old. And so we still don't have a retirement. I should have half of my annual income already saved away. I ain't got nothing. I ain't got shit. And so that's a disaster. And it's because we cannot afford it because there is so much debt and pay is so little. But Jeff, you understand, it was the lowest unemployment ever. Look at the jobs numbers. The jobs numbers are fantastic. If you need a good job, just go out and get one. They're everywhere. Again, half of all Americans work low-wage jobs. Why? It's because that's all there is available. That's the job boom. That's the job boom. It's all low-wage jobs with no benefits. That is the problem. And look, corporations got a gigantic tax cut. The middle class still pays now a higher percentage of their income in taxes and corporations. And by the way, we wouldn't be so upset if that we're paying so much in taxes if we actually got something for it. But what do we get for it? Nothing. We don't get health care. No, that money goes to defense contractors. That money goes to corporate CEOs. That money gets put to subsidies for oil companies. Yeah, of course we're pissed. That money's not going back to us. That money's not helping us at all. And so, yeah, I can understand why people are angry about their taxes. And so, look, the main arguments for them, and I've got another, another segment that's going to kind of spell that out a little further. But their main argument for reelecting Trump is to own the libs. That's it. It's just hatred for other people, hatred for the other side, hatred for immigrants, racism, fear, xenophobia. That's it. That's it. Because none of the other reasons they use to try to basically put a smokescreen on their own racism make any sense whatsoever. They don't care about anything else. And by the way, that makes them the perfect mark for Donald Trump's scam. As long as they don't care, as long as they have no intellectual curiosity, just like Donald Trump, then Trump can go and continue to exploit their willful ignorance for his own personal and political gain. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a patreon.com/TYTNation set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.